Hello everyone, and welcome to a Storpey video that's slightly different from usual. This one is long overdue. Sorry for the amount of time it's taken. During my massive break from playing games and doing YouTube, I actually spent no time doing this either. I sort of eliminated everything from YouTube. For anyone who doesn't know what this is, a couple of years ago, I think, or just over a year ago, I asked all the viewers to write an SCP style. It didn't have to be an SCP, like an entry on the SCP website, but it was, just had to be a sort of SCP kind of vague idea story for a room in my building at work. The story of it is, I have this building. I'll put the picture on the screen. There's this room at work where I work in an office, and it's down in the basement, and it's always slightly ajar, and I've had a look inside it and it creeps me out. It's like a little sort of closet kind of thing, and it's really scary. And there's a sign on the door saying beware void below, and then one saying fire door keep shut, and then there's a number on it as well. I can't remember what the number is, but it's scary, and I always feel creeped out when I go past it. So what I did was get people to, or ask people to come up with the scariest or the coolest idea for what the room could be. It could be anything. It could be just a very subtle thing. It could be a really scary thing. And I got literally dozens and dozens. I think I had well over 100 entries. That's partly why it's taken so long, because not only did I have to read through them all, I had to then decide which ones were good. So, I read through all of them, and then I thought, right, well, I've put like 80 through to the next round. Oh, now I have to read them all again. So I read them all over and over again, and I've managed to whittle it down. The prize, by the way, for this competition was back when it actually mattered. It was a Slender Man's Shadow key, because the maker of the game was kind enough to give me 3 extra keys, and so I offered that as the prize. Lots of people said they weren't bothered about the prize, they just wanted to have a go at this. And my goodness, thank you so much everyone for doing this. It was great. Like, some of them were so funny, and some of them were fairly scary as well. I had 3 winners, because obviously I've got 3 keys, so there were 3 winners in no particular order. They were all very different stories, and I really liked them. I won't be explaining why I chose them, and why I chose the runners-up, and why I didn't choose other kinds, and all that sort of thing. Some of them were really subtle, which is great. Some of them were really in your face, which is great. Some of them sort of relied on my real life, which is great. Some of them, some of them relied on Slender Man, which wasn't so great, but some of them were really great. And it's, there was just so much to it, and I've judged it based on gut feeling, so I'm not going to go explaining why I chose particular ones. So, without much further ado, there were 3 winners and 4 runners-up. The first winner was, and again, this is in no particular order, apart from it's like alphabetical order, I guess. The first winner is Day Rule. I assume it's pronounced Day. It's short for Damien. Damien Rule. Your name rules, sir. I'm sure you get that all the time. And he, I think it's a he. It's got to be Damien. Yeah. Anyway, this is such a bad video already. He said, he sent in this story a long time ago, and reckoned that that it wasn't, this room was an SCP. It was a particular thing that's supposed to be secured, contained, and protected. And I will read it out to you now, in my best reading voice. Item SCP-1417, the Nightmare Box. Oh, by the way, sorry, I just totally ruined the immersion that I'd built up there in that 5-word title. You can go, it's in the description just underneath this. You can go to my website and find a page where you can download every single one of these. So you can actually read through with me if you want, or you can just, read them at your own leisure. One of them's a JPEG, one of them is a zip file full of, oh my god, loads of stuff. That's one of the runner-ups. So we'll, it's now gone and spoiled it for him. But anyway, let's carry on. So, read along if you wish, down in the description below. Item SCP-1417, the Nightmare Box. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-1417 cannot be contained in a traditional sense. Instead, any individuals showing signs of influence from SCP-1417, I'll call it, should be monitored closely by 2 plainclothed agents. In the event that the civilian population should become aware of SCP-1417's nature, or any individual should enter SCP-1417 and close the door behind them, Class B amnesiacs will be distributed to the population within kilometers, and media coverage of it will be suppressed with cooperation from local governments. By the way, I'm going to beep the bits that are redacted because I can't be bothered to go through and beep them all myself. That's going to be too much work. Sorry. Right. Description. SCP-1417 is a small storage closet in the building in UK. The materials stored within SCP-1417 have been reported to change over time, and individuals being influenced by it will universally express a feeling of unease when looking inside. The door to SCP-1417 is marked with 3 signs, one reading "Beware, void below", one reading "Fire door, keep shut", and one bearing a number. The number on the top sign has been reported to increase with time and is speculated to be the number of deaths caused by SCP-1417, though this is not confirmed. The door will always be locked until it has chosen a target. Once SCP-1417 has chosen a target to influence, it will appear unlocked to that individual, and as influence progresses, it will appear slightly ajar and finally wide open. Symptoms of influence by SCP-1417 increase in severity over time and appear to be broken up into 3 stages. Stage 1, approximately 1 to 14 days. A persistent feeling of curiosity about the nature and purpose of SCP-1417. During this stage, individuals under the influence of SCP-1417 will often ask co-workers and supervisors about it. A feeling of unease or nervousness when within sight of SCP-1417. Minor physical ailments when within the building, including headaches, fatigue, and soreness or stiffness in joints. Persisting and recurring nightmares involving being trapped in a confined space or chased through narrow corridors. Stage 2, approximately 14 to days. An increase in curiosity about the nature and purpose of SCP-1417. Individuals who have progressed to Stage 2 will expand their range of questioning about SCP-1417, frequently asking other individuals who have no reason to know anything about it, such as friends or family who have never been in the building or even in the vicinity of UK. The sense of unease felt when within sight of SCP-1417 increases to the point of paranoia and often manifests as a perception that SCP-1417 is trying to harm them or wishes them ill. Physical ailments when within the building worsen and include migraine, headaches, an increase in sensitivity to bright light and loud noise, exhaustion, nausea, and cramping. Individuals may also experience a persistent physical tic or twitch in major muscle groups. Nightmares progress to the point that individuals being influenced by SCP-1417 become afraid to fall asleep. This results in the usual symptoms of sleep deprivation such as depression, malaise, tremors, and hallucinations. Stage 3, approximately to days. Individuals become obsessed with finding out the nature and purpose of SCP-1417 to the point of neglecting other obligations like their family and work lives. Physical ailments when within the building worsen to the point that individuals being influenced by SCP-1417 cannot spend more than an hour or so within the building. Individuals avoid sleep entirely, resorting to any stimulants they can acquire, such as caffeine, amphetamines, and artificial adrenaline to stay awake. At the end of Stage 3, individuals being influenced by SCP-1417 will attempt to enter it and lock themselves inside. Should this take place, occurs to the influenced individual. See the attached incident logs for specific known cases. That's coming in a second. Cleanup teams should be dispatched. Media suppression should be immediately enacted, and Class B amnesiacs administered to any non-Foundation personnel witnesses. These are the attached incidents. There are 2. Incident 1417-01. On 19 Alphonse broke into the building and entered SCP-1417. One plainclothes embedded agent assigned to the monitoring of SCP-1417 influenced individuals pursued beep, beep, but was unable to prevent his egress into SCP-1417. The agent reported attempting to unlock the door to SCP-1417 with a key that had previously fit the lock, but found that the key no longer worked. He reported sounds of footsteps coming from within SCP-1417, which gradually grew fainter, as if beep were walking down a corridor away from the door. A loud growling was heard, followed by the sound of beep running back to the door and screaming for help. A snap was then heard, presumed to be the spinal cord of beep, which was found to have been severed below the fifth vertebra. Following which, the door to SCP-1417 could again be unlocked by its usual key. Incident 1417-02. On beep 20 beep, Mary beep entered SCP-1417 and locked the door behind her. A group of her co-workers gathered around the door after she began screaming hysterically from inside, but were unable to unlock the door to SCP-1417. Beep expressed through confused screams that the room was shrinking around her, and that beep. Due to the particularly gruesome state in which her remains were discovered, Class A amnesiacs were administered to all witnesses, who were then relocated under O5 approval. It should be noted that beep progressed through the 3 stages of SCP-1417's influence much faster than any other known case. Further research is suggested to determine the cause of this. So there you go, that was Damien Rule's one. I hope the beeps didn't make you piss yourselves too much, and I hope it didn't ruin the immersion, but you know, that's what I'm going to do, so just live with it. I will mention quickly why I really liked that one. It was partly because it leaves it open to interpretation a bit. It's exactly what I was thinking every time I walked past the room. It was a sort of, oh my god, you know, there's a lot that's unknown about this. There might be horrific things going on, but you know, it's not all logged, it's not all catalogued in a file somewhere. There are ideas about it, and there are scary, you know, things to do with it. But this guy, you know, Damon, he's been subtle, and he's, well, not that subtle, I suppose, with snapping vertebrae and stuff, but he's been fairly subtle, trying to make sure that it keeps some of the mystery alive, if that makes sense. It's not just everything on a plate served up to you, and it leaves you wanting more, and I think that's great. That's why I really liked that one. Let me just have a quick drink because I am thirsty. There we are. Lots of reading makes my throat dry. So this one's even longer. Oh no, it's not. No, it's nowhere near as long. Don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, this one was also written in a SCP style format. It's slightly looser, but it's the same kind of thing, same style, and it was written by our second winner, Matt Lucker. He obviously was lucker to win this. Oh dear. Okay, so SCP Foundation: Secure, Contain, Protect. Request for formal classification of anomalous site. Provisional designation SCP-1786. Site has been secured, but no formal classification has been attributed to it. Description: SCP-1786 is a small 2 by 2 by 1.5 metre room located in the basement of an urban workplace in Beep, London, UK. The room is contained behind an ordinary wooden door, which is curiously labelled Void Below, despite the fact that the room is built on its own foundations rather than over any form of void, which is assumed to mean a form of mineshaft or tunnel. The first evaluation of the site seemed to suggest that the room was a water and electricity meter access room, due to the presence of a series of pipes and a small fuse box on the back wall of the room. Further inspection of the room by D-Class and professional SCP members has confirmed that the pipes do not function as water, gas and ventilation pipes, but rather as conduits for inert gases such as argon and helium, as well as pure oxygen. Tests carried out by Professor Beep have confirmed that the pipes and walls of SCP-1786 consist of keratin, dentin and bone fragments. Samples taken from the walls have been tested, and the DNA found has been matched to the DNA of several confirmed missing persons, all of whom disappeared within a 3-mile radius of this site and other SCP-regulated sites within London, UK. The room is confirmed as anomalous. Electronic surveillance devices and environmental imaging devices do not function within and directly outside of SCP-1786, and tests have confirmed that radio, satellite, and mobile phone signals are unable to penetrate SCP-1786. Dead zone confirmed. SCP-Iris has successfully confirmed that the area around SCP-1786... Oh, hang on. SCP-Iris, we have a... No, we don't. I do apologise. SCP-Iris has successfully confirmed that the area around SCP-1786 has significantly higher magnetic and background radiation readings than other areas. Compasses within 200 feet of the site point towards the centre of the site rather than towards true magnetic north. All audiovisual recording devices do not record clearly. Recordings consist entirely of unintelligible and still anomalous, and all attempts to remotely record the inside of SCP-1786 when its door is closed have resulted in a recording of interference that are of no use to the Foundation, with the exception of transcript 1786-1R. Please note that while no Foundation transmissions can penetrate or leave SCP-1786, the site itself seems to be broadcasting an infinitely looping Morse code signal on every radio frequency. This has been scripted as... That Morse code translation, void below, help me. The origin and meaning of transmission remains unknown. Sorry, I hope that Morse code wasn't too annoying. SCP-1786 has an adverse effect upon D-Class personnel who are confined to the room on their own. D-Class personnel sealed within the room for periods of time of 1 hour, with a standard range of ±20 minutes from start of symptoms, have later reported as having heard soft but insidious whispers issuing from within the walls, as well as having heard an anomalous white noise which only the subject can hear. The noise and whispers persist for several hours after first exposure to SCP-1786, and all subjects have been treated for severe insomnia and amnesia that persists for weeks after first exposure. Subjects were terminated after recovery. Other D-Class personnel who were sealed alone within the site for longer periods of time, that is, periods exceeding 24 hours, have exhibited far more extreme symptoms, such as inexplicable ultra-rapid malnutrition and disappearance or retraction of body hair, as well as protracted vertigo and sudden muscle spasms. Removal of subjects from the room after periods of time in excess of 48 hours has led to the respective subjects requesting to be returned to the place. See Appendix 1 for details of conversation with D-Class member Beep. 7 members of the SCP Foundation research personnel who first explored the site have exhibited the same symptoms as those who were locked in the room for over an hour. All members of the research team terminated under the terms of Exposure Protocol 3. SCP-1786 has been fitted with an electromagnetically sealed 5-inch thick steel plate door, and the outside of the building has been fitted with alarms to alert Site-12 to any potential containment breaches. Site has been classified as safe, and no future experiments are permitted without the express verbal permission of Director Storpey or Research Professor C.B. Wiserat. Sorry. I don't know. Wiserat. Very good. Clive Billy Wiserat. Civilian requests to visit the basement should be denied, and civilians should be turned away with the excuse that the site is being renovated due to dangerous structural weaknesses. This is a conversation between Dr. Beep and D-Class member, written here as DCXX, which replaces subject's forename. He was exposed to SCP-1786 for 51 hours. So, the D-Class member is going to be DC, and Doctor is going to be Doctor. DC. No, I'll just read them. Take me back! Jesus fucking Christ, Doc, take me back! Where, XX? Where would you like to go back to? The dark room, the dark place, you know, in the basement. Why would you like to go back there? I liked it there. It was nice, dark, creepy as hell, but nice. You know the procedure. Subjects may not revisit SCP sites once they have been exposed to unknown effects. You're not in a good state at the moment. You've got severe muscle spasms and we don't know all that... Fuck you! Take me back there now! Take me back, you bastard! Please refrain from using profanity and address me politely or I will have to sedate... DC then runs towards the doctor and attempts to bite him. Security rushes in and pulls DC off the doctor. Exposure has caused the subject to become violent. Terminate him immediately. We may need a second Site 12D person to inspect the site. This isn't closed yet. Subject terminated under Exposure Protocol 4. Violent action induced by exposure warrants immediate termination. This is a transcript of the recording of the locked SCP-1786. There's static for 37 seconds, followed by void. Then there's another silence for 12 seconds. Then void. Void below. Help me. Void below. Help me. 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 Then there's silence until the end of the recording, which is at 12 minutes and 29 seconds long. The voice has been identified as a male, approximately 30 years of age, British accent. No repeat of the event has occurred. Currently no idea of the origin of the contact. Room has been sealed and no access is allowed without the previous verbal permissions. End of report. So, well done, Matt. That was awesome. Again, it was because of the idea of, well, what the hell is it? You know, there was no resolution. There's some weird shit going on, and you know, I like the inclusion of those logs as well. Well written, and it's just enough to make you think, shit, something scary's going on here. So I really enjoyed that, and yeah, thank you. This is the very last one by Travis Kalou. I think I've spelled it right. Callue. Unless I just sort of had a typo. I've never heard of that surname before. So Travis Kalou. And this one is an actual story, and it's about me, and it's got a fun little twist at the end. See if you see it. So let me just have a quick drink, and then I'll read Travis's story. The world is full of secrets. Every county, every town has its own share of untold history. One particularly well-kept secret dates back to the 1960s, when a mysterious building stood in a town in South England. None of the locals knew what purpose this building served, nor did they give it much thought. It would certainly never have crossed their minds that within this silent, externally uninteresting structure, don't know why I said building, grotesque and malevolent entities writhed and festered in the chains of captivity. This building was in fact a government facility where the most vile and dangerous life forms were kept and experimented on. Each of these specimens has been well researched and their weaknesses documented. After all, everything has a weakness. Everything except one particular specimen. This specimen was kept in a maximum security cell, known to personnel simply as the Void. A chasm extending underground for 10 miles, beginning with a room in the building's basement. Though the government had the world's best scientists working on the case, no feasible defence against this creature was found. Eventually a decision was made that all available resources would be directed towards this purpose. So that night the silence of the sleeping town was broken by the sound of monstrous roars and blood-curdling shrieks as all other specimens were terminated. The researchers relocated and the building was left, and the seemingly impervious creature was left in its cell, the Void. 50 years on, the building has been given a new purpose, an office. On one particular night, the office is completely empty, save for one lone employee sat working at his desk. His name is Steve. Haha. Steve never cared much for the night shifts. Few people would, given the sense of isolation that comes with being the only person in the workplace. Aside from this, it was an average night. The only sounds were the tapping of keys on Steve's keyboard and the rain outside gently pattering on the window, which soothed him slightly. As the hours rolled on by, Steve's eyelids grew heavier and heavier, and he would occasionally check the clock to see how many hours remained until he could leave the desolate workplace and relax with a beer at home. That sounds good. 1 a.m, 5 hours left, he said, to no one in particular. But 5 hours seemed like an eternity, because Steve was growing more nervous than usual. The lights would flicker occasionally, which was certainly out of the ordinary. But Steve simply made a mental note to tell his boss and tried to ignore his growing feeling of uneasiness. As the wind picked up outside, however, he found his efforts in vain. The window popped open slightly, just by a centimetre, causing the wind to enter with a low whistle. Steve wasted no time in closing it again. But now he was on edge, for now there was a change in the atmosphere, and Steve got a feeling of a dark presence in the building with him. Money doesn't make itself, though, so with a gulp, Steve sat back down at his desk and continued working. To calm his nerves, he decided to sing to himself. If it helps with Slender Man, it'll help with this, he joked to himself. So that's what he did. Quietly at first, he sang, but he quickly grew more enthusiastic. Finally, he finished his little performance, but immediately wished he hadn't. The hairs on the back of Steve's neck stood straight up, because from the basement below, Steve could hear the sound of scraping, as if someone or something was scratching at the stone floor down there. Despite the adrenaline now coursing through his body, Steve sat perfectly still in his chair, listening intently to the chilling sound. Finally, against his better judgment, Steve decided to investigate. As he descended into the dark basement, Steve's heart hammered against his chest, almost as if it were trying to tell him to turn back. Steve braced himself and turned on the light, expecting to be met with the sight of an intruder, but the basement hallway was empty. Steve breathed a sigh of relief, which was short-lived, as the scraping sound persisted. He followed the sound to the end of the hallway, to a mysterious door that he had noticed on occasion. There was a bold sign on it that read, "Beware, void below." Steve had often wondered what this meant, but the door was always locked, so he never had the chance to look inside. At the moment, however, that was the last thing he wanted to do, given the relentless scraping sound coming from within. Steve noticed that the previously locked door was inexplicably now ajar, so he swallowed his fear and pushed it open. Again, to his relief, he was met with a modest, empty room. He looked around at the interior and found nothing of interest, until he looked down at the floor. Now, Steve knew where the terrible sound was coming from. A large crack was present on the floor, and with each scrape, the crack widened. A wave of fear washed over Steve, for now he realised whatever this void below the room was, something was in it and was scratching its way through the floor. Steve didn't need a second to think. He turned and ran, slamming the door behind him. He didn't know what this thing was, but he wasn't waiting around to find out. Taking the stairs 2 at a time, Steve made his way as fast as he could to the exit. To his horror, he found it locked. Struggling to think clearly, he tried to think of an alternate escape method, but his thought process was interrupted by an earth-shattering bang that rocked the entire building. The shockwave knocked Steve off his feet, and the lights flickered wildly. When everything had settled, Steve got back on his feet, though his legs were now shaking with fear. The lights had practically gone out. The building was now barely lit by the dim yellow of artificial light, and once again the building was silent, save for the wind and rain outside. Moving as quietly as he could, he made his way back to his desk. The room was slightly brighter than the rest of the building, thanks to the light of his computer screen, but he felt no safer there, for Steve could feel that he was now being watched. Steve stood poised to run, glancing affrightedly around him at every corner of the room. As his eyes passed by a door frame, he saw a shadow glide quickly past, and he raised his hands to his mouth to stifle his scream. Steve forced himself not to panic, and finally noticed that his computer screen had changed. The screen was filled with mostly garbled text, but a legible date in the corner told Steve that the file was extremely old, dating back all the way to the 1960s. The file had apparently been corrupted with age, but still contained a small amount of legible text. Steve read over the file aloud to himself. Maximum containment breached. Specimen Z99 has escaped. Victims, torment, cannot run, cannot hide. Ingests memories of victims, comatose, returns later for the bodies, corpses unrecovered. Steve took a step back in disbelief. Could this be what he felt observing him through the darkness? He decided it would be prudent to find something to defend himself with, so he made his way carefully around the office looking for a potential weapon. Now the rain and wind had ceased, and the only sounds were Steve's footsteps. He made his way through every room, pleading with fate to show him a glimmer of hope, but he found nothing. He stopped in the middle of the room and put his head in his hands, trying to compose himself. The office was still silent, aside from the sound of his footsteps echoing slightly around the room. Then a chill of pure ice raced down Steve's spine as he realised he had stopped walking. The sound of the footsteps persisted, growing louder. Steve was too frightened to move. The footsteps ceased and silence filled the air for a moment. And then Steve heard a sound that can only be described as a combination of a groan and a hiss right next to his ear. This was enough to break Steve's fear paralysis. Steve panicked and ran. He flew down the hall back to the exit door, pounding on it with his fists, pleading to anyone that would listen, but there was no one save for Steve and whatever was now chasing him through the barely lit office. Steve looked back down the hall and saw the grotesque figure that had been stalking him emerge from the room that he had just run out of. Screaming, Steve ran back down the stairs to the basement. He ran along the basement hall, hoping to find a room in which to hide, but before he could get out of the hall, he heard the hiss from behind him again and froze. Slowly he turned. The creature stood at the bottom of the stairs, and now the chase was over. Time seemed to stand still for a moment, and then Steve felt a force slam into him like a freight train, knocking him to the ground. Before he could even attempt to scramble to his feet, he felt an immense force on each of his wrists and shoulders, pinning him to the floor. There was a horrible crack as each joint was crushed under the pressure. Through the darkness, Steve saw the repulsive face of the creature inches in front of his own. Slowly, the mouth of the creature opened, and a needle-like tongue pierced Steve's forehead. All of Steve's memories seemed to come to the surface, and, one by one, they would fade as the creature drew them from his mind. The memories of the night began to slip away, and Steve could feel his consciousness waning. Finally, he accepted that this was it. This must be the end. Steve's vision began to blur as the creature continued its unnatural feast. Then the sound of a door bursting open echoed throughout the building. In his semi-conscious state, Steve was just able to make a sound loud enough to be heard upstairs. Two men armed with guns came thundering down the stairs. The creature withdrew its needle-like tongue from Steve's brain and turned to face the men. It let out a shriek and moved quickly toward them. But the men wasted no time shooting two darts from their guns loaded with a strangely coloured liquid into the creature. It shrieked, thrashed and writhed, then finally slumped to the floor, hissing and wriggling. The men moved in quickly and dragged the creature toward the room at the end of the hallway. Steve was just able to glance the sign, "Beware, void below," before the pain finally made him fall into unconsciousness. If Steve didn't believe in guardian angels before that night, he would have, if he were able to remember it. The creature had devoured his memories of the entire ordeal. The researchers had discovered a method to subdue the creature and arrived just in time to save Steve from an indescribably horrific fate, sealing the creature back in its cell. He awoke in his bed at home and never thought back to that night, assuming it to have simply been another uneventful night shift. During his period of unconsciousness, his wrists and shoulders had undergone surgery, and although he could now move them, they were in a great amount of pain. But Steve simply assumed this to be a reoccurrence of his RSI. Steve still visits the mysterious room from time to time, blissfully unaware of the creature festering in the void below that had so nearly claimed his mind and his life. He even mentioned it to his YouTube fans in a video. Although he finds the room creepy, he cannot place why. Perhaps that's a blessing, perhaps it's a curse. What do you think, Steve? Better hope it never gets out again, because it's been inside your mind. It knows where you live, where you work, where you sleep. It wouldn't have any trouble finding you. Oh, creepy. Now, obviously, that's more creepy for me because it's directed at me, so it's bloody scary, but it's very good. I mean, you know, every single one of these entries, there are things that can be improved, absolutely, but, you know, that one as well really made me sort of think, yeah, that was quite cool. There were some cool images in there, some really cool ideas, but it was really that ending that, you know, swayed me, you know, the fact that I'd had my wrists and shoulders broken, and that's where this pain had come from, and very clever. It was all very focused at me, and I really liked that. That was a good attempt to scare me. Now, I've got 4 runners up as well. So congratulations to Damien Rule, Matt Lucker, and Travis Kalu. I think it's Kalu. Sorry if it's not. Well done. You've each won a key, and I will be sending it to you soon when I can find it. I can't remember where I put it, but I will find them and I'll send them to you via email. So thank you very much for entering. Thank you also to everyone else who entered. I got some seriously good entertainment, even though it took me so long. Got some really good entertainment reading through all of them. Some of them were amazing, and I wish I could have had so many more winners, but I had to choose 3, so those were my 3. There were 4 runners-up, however. I won't read these out now, but you can go onto the website and find them. There was Josh Henry. There was Johnny Gonzalez. There were Brad and Nisha. And there was XSS. I've got to mention XSS quickly. He put together 5 different things. There was a PowerPoint presentation. There was a picture. There was a couple of documents, and they were all done in different styles. And he gave me a really good scare. He told me to turn all the lights off and read them all, in the quiet kind of thing, and I did. SCP-7838, and it was creepy. Well done, XSS. You made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up and tingle when I was sitting in the dark reading that. So very well done, and well done for all of the all the effort that went into all the different parts to it as well. Thank you so much for entering. So thank you to everyone, and I won't be doing any more competitions like this because it took me so long and it was a lot of work, and I apologise for how shit this video's been in terms of production quality. But there you go. Thank you very much for doing it. That's a nail in that competition's coffin. I can finally put that to rest, and you can stop asking me about it, everyone. So anyway, thank you so much for that, and I will catch you all in the next video when I'm playing a game. Until then, happy nightmares.